go. All right. Well, thanks everybody. My name is Josh Kelly. I work for the Department of Environmental Conservation, and this is the 6th meeting of the Depackager Stakeholder Group, evaluating sort of the future of depackaging in the state of Vermont. I'm the solid waste program manager, and I'm really appreciative of my colleagues, Mia and Ben, here today, who are helping to run things in the room. So thanks to you both. And thanks to you both for the support of this group. I won't talk for too long. I apologize for not being there in person. I seem to have the sniffles today. I caught them on Thanksgiving. Classic, classic. Go to Thanksgiving and come back with a cold. So in any case, it's always a lot to digest in these meetings. So we'll get right down to it. At this moment, ANR has agreed to draft the whatever type of recommendations this group decides on. Right now, we don't have a lot of those at the moment, and so hopefully this meeting can get you all further down the track. You can see the agenda. We have some guest speakers, and then we have some really the group discussion around the charges 1, 2, and 3. So I definitely want to draw your attention to that so you can start thinking about that as the day goes on. With that, I think we are ready to support you with the drafting, but we acknowledge the short amount of time left. Thanks for those who signed up for the next meeting. I think, Mia and Ben, what date is that in December?
12th. December 12th.
Great.
Yeah.
So for anybody else, that we'll be back at this then, and we'll be working with you all to figure out what you want on that agenda. I'm going to hand it over to Ben and see if there's anything else I missed or things he wants to update folks on.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. Just real quick, because I know we were short on time today. Couple updates from the last meeting. I don't know if you all remember, we've sent out a couple updates from Dr. Bennett's presentation. There was some confusion about, she mentioned Vermont being one of the leaders of PFAS containing waste. So we just followed up with her after that to figure out what she meant by that and what waste she was talking about. It turns out that information from EPA was pulled from hazardous waste manifests. So it's only hazardous waste that are shipped for treatment and disposal. It wasn't solid waste or organics or anything that we're talking about here or anything going to Vermont landfills or facilities, just to clarify that. So that's all been formally clarified in the minutes. I sent around updates to this group and then also to the people that attended last week. And it's been saved to the new file keeping system that I'll talk about in a second. The second thing is Dr. Roy sent some supplemental information from his presentation. He sent us this 2-page kind of cheat sheet that's kind of an overview of what they presented last week, which I think is really helpful. He also sent a bunch of resources, literature resources that I've saved to the file document system as well. So you can always poke in there, open them up and take a read through. So I wanted to update too. We were using the FTP site for file management, but we've had a couple hiccups. Kind of clunky for people to get into. We found out after the fact that it deletes things after a certain amount of days. So that's IT didn't tell me about that when we set it up. So that was kind of a problem. So we came up with this new document management system, which is linked from the shareholder or stakeholder page. And we also sent out the link to everybody directly. Everything's going to be saved there and it's public facing. So any public interested parties can access the files there. You folks can all access things there. The difference is you can't save to it. You have to send it to Mia, Josh, or I. We'll save it in the file and then it'll be publicly available. So get in there, check things out. Let me know if you have any issues accessing or opening things and we'll troubleshoot for you. The last thing I wanted to say is we're starting to get some public comment submittals coming in. Those are being saved. There's a new folder on that file document drive of public comments. Just putting them there for now as a placeholder, and then we'll figure out what to do with those later on. So they're there if you want to go and find them. There's one that came in from Carolyn Gordon, and then one that came in from Natasha Duarte from CAV. Maybe public comment is too strong. One of them is just sharing resources, sharing some literature and stuff that the group might find helpful. So those are all saved there. Get in there, take a look, and let us know if organizationally things make sense or if there's anything you want to add to that. So.
And the next meeting is December 6th. I'm sorry. I really wanted to be there. And that's why I wanted to be the 12th. But yeah, so I won't be here on the 6th. But you all, 9:30 to 11:30.
That was gonna be my question. I had to.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so I think that's it. We're gonna roll in. We have two speakers today. I want to introduce Dr. Sarah Vos from the Vermont Department of Health, who's here with us today to talk about PFAS and microplastics, two ginormous subjects. And I'll turn it over to you, and
Okay.
I'll try to get the slide presentation pulled up in the meantime.
Okay. Yes, thanks for inviting me to come in person. Haven't been here in a while. So yeah, like Ben said, I'm with the health department. I'm the state toxicologist. So in our group, we work on risk assessments and evaluate the hazards of chemicals and what it means when we're exposed to them. So I did send a PDF of my slides, so you're welcome to share them around with everyone. Next, or do you want me to click it? Okay. So I just wanted to kind of frame the questions that Ben asked me to talk about. So first, health impacts of PFAS, and then microplastics, including how we're exposed to them and which types of microplastics are the most toxic. I really hate to disappoint you so early on in the morning, but I won't be able to answer all the questions. And I didn't want to have to make you wait until the end to hear me say that. But at least this sort of frames what I was asked to talk about. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so PFAS, that is a hyperlink. It looks like a very strange hyperlink, but all the information that I'm going to tell you about PFAS is at this link. So if you want to go read the 894 pages, it is all there to be read. Yeah. So first, I just want to explain, when we think about chemical toxicity, how do we measure toxicity? How do we know how harmful a chemical is to our health? And we do that, we use values that are called toxicity values. There's a lot of words on that slide, so don't worry about reading them because I'll read them to you. But toxicity values in general give us a measure of potency for chemicals. So how harmful is a chemical to our health? And a toxicity value is a dose. And so the definition there of reference dose, there's a few different kinds of toxicity values. There's a reference dose is ingestion. There's a reference concentration, which is inhalation. There are also cancer slope factors. So for chemicals that are known to cause cancer, you have that both for ingestion and for inhalation. For PFAS, we only have the oral reference dose. And so you can see the definition here. It's an estimate, and EPA includes, there is some uncertainty there, of the daily oral exposure to humans, including sensitive populations, because we're always worried about, people who might be more sensitive than others. And that dose is likely to be without an appreciable risk of deleterious effects during a lifetime. So it means the dose that we don't want you to exceed, right? So if you're under the reference dose, we're pretty confident to say you're not going to have adverse health effects. So the way that these toxicity values are derived, these are derived by EPA. This is not something that we do at the health department in Vermont. EPA or sometimes other authoritative bodies will look at the primary literature. So they look at either toxicology studies on animals. Sometimes they use epidemiology, studies on people. Those are more rare. But they do find like whatever study they say is the best quality, has the best potential for being, the best scientific merit. And they look at the dose that either has no health effects or the lowest dose with effects, or they do a type of modeling to look at, at what dose would 5% or 10% of the population have this adverse effect. And then they will take that dose from the study once they've figured out which dose from the study they want to use as their point of departure, and they will apply uncertainty factors. So if it's an animal study, they'll apply a factor to account for the fact that although we're really similar, we're not rats. They'll apply a factor to address the fact that I might be more sensitive than you. So, within a human species, you have different levels of sensitivities. Then they have other uncertainty factors as well. Okay, so next slide. So this shows you the reference doses for PFOA. It's similar for PFOS. PFOA and PFOS are, as you probably know, the two most well-known and well-studied PFAS. In 2009, EPA published a reference dose of 2 × 10⁻⁴ milligram per kilogram body weight per day. So that this is a dose. It's always based on you know, my dose is going to be different for my body weight than someone else has a different body weight. That was based on increased liver weight. In 2016, they lowered that reference dose by an order of magnitude, 2 times 10 to the minus 5, so they're allowing less. In 2016, that was based on developmental health effects, which include delayed ossification, which is how the bones form together, as well as accelerated puberty in offspring. About a year ago, EPA published another reference dose for PFOA, which is 4 orders of magnitude lower than what was published in 2016. And that is based on immune system effects. The 2009 and 2016 RFDs are from animal studies. The 2021 reference dose is from a study in children, human children. So this is always my sort of real world explanation about what these reference doses mean. So you want to think about your risk cup. And when you are exposed to a chemical, you don't want your risk cup to overflow, because then you've gone over that dose that EPA says, you know, if you're under it, we can assure you that you don't have health effects. So you don't want your risk cup to overflow. And so what's happened over the years, and this is my sort of eyeball log graph of how a size would change over a few orders of magnitude, the risk cup basically has gotten smaller. So the amount of PFAS that, you know, might have only halfway filled up a risk cup in 2009 is now going to overflow our risk cup in 2021. And in, oh yeah, go back, sorry. Yeah. So in 2021, EPA also listed many other candidate endpoints for reference doses, and that's just a long way of saying there are many health effects of PFAS. So some of the ones that they considered in 2021 were developmental impacts, impacts on liver, impacts on serum lipid, which means more cholesterol, endocrine effects, and reproductive effects. And some of this is because of the fact that PFAS are stored in our blood. So a lot of chemicals, when they enter our body, they get absorbed and then they sort of get sequestered to a target organ, and they do all their damage in one particular place, which, you know, it's different from the way that PFAS are stored. So PFAS are stored in our plasma proteins. So that means that our blood is full of PFAS and it's circulating all around. So all of our organs kind of have equal opportunity to get PFAS via the blood. And also in 2021, I mentioned early on that there are different toxicity values for measuring cancer potency. So EPA didn't give a quantitative measure of cancer potency in 2021, but they did classify PFOA as likely to be carcinogenic to humans, and that's italicized because it's a formal EPA classification, and that's a more carcinogenic classification than what EPA published in 2016. The 2021 cancer classification is based on kidney and testicular cancer. So in addition to all of these health effects that I've just gone over, PFAS, you know, PFOA and PFOS are also likely to increase our risk of cancer. So that was super quick. I guess one other thing I'll add about PFAS, they, you probably already know this. I don't know how much background you've gone over, but they don't break down very well. So you probably know that from looking at them in the environment. That's also true in our bodies. We have a really sophisticated set of enzymes in our liver that try to break down chemicals and get them out of our bodies, but PFAS are pretty resistant to metabolism. They're also resistant to excretion. So one of the ways that our body handles chemicals is that our body looks at the chemical and says, you don't belong here, I want to get you out. And there's a lot of interesting biochemistry around why PFAS aren't excreted very well, but this all adds up to mean that PFAS can stay in our bodies for years. So even though the amount you're exposed to may be very small, it builds up and it is really hard to get rid of.
Is it technically bioaccumulative, or?
I would guess that it is. I mean, that there are certainly classifications about PBT, persistent bioaccumulative and toxic. I don't know off my head. My guess is yes. But I could probably get you a more official answer.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I can move on to,
So quick question. So that's about PFAS and
Yeah.
PFOA, which are 2 of 3,000 or so.
10,000, 20,000.
related compounds. Do we know at this point if the others behave in similar, like the mechanisms are similar or their toxicity? Or do we just,
Not really. So even with PFOA and PFOS, the mechanism, so once PFAS get inside of the cells, you know, how they're actually exerting these toxic effects are still being worked out. So there are probably some similarities, especially when you're looking at maybe similar chain lengths. So PFOA and PFOS both have 8 carbons. The S obviously has a sulfonate. PFHPA, the 7 carbon acid, may act pretty similar to PFOA. PFNA, the 9 carbon, 10 carbon. I think those are all, you know, potentially have some overlap, but it's, you know, PFAS are different than all the other chemicals that we work on, right? For every other chemical that we assess, we look at the toxicity, we look at the toxicity value, we try to come up with levels that people can be exposed to, but you can't do that for 4,000, 5,000 individual PFAS. So I think eventually PFAS would be addressed as a group, and there's a lot of science, there's a lot of people at EPA and NIEHS working on, you know, what PFAS are like others and how do we put them into groups to measure toxicity, but we're kind of in that gray zone where the science isn't fully formed yet. I don't know if that answered your question. If
oh,
it
yeah, that's
didn't.
all.
But certainly PFOA is likely to be one of the most toxic, just from what's been published so far. So microplastics, in August of this year, the World Health Organization published this document, which is only 150 pages, and it has lots of pictures, and it's very easy to read compared to the PFAS document. So if you haven't seen that, I would definitely recommend that. Everything I'm going to show you, I summarized from this WHO presentation. So some of my takeaways, there's really no consensus on the definition of nano and microplastic particles, and that's the phrase that they use, and especially in relation to human health. So one of the boundaries that seems to be pretty well agreed upon is that microplastics can go from the nano scale, so greater than 1 nanometer in diameter, to the micro, so less than 5 millimeter diameter, which is a pretty big range. And the size that appears to be most relevant to human health is less than 10 micrometers. However, microplastics, nanomicroplastics are really complicated when we think about toxicity and exposure, because size, which is that top little petal, is really only one of the factors that can contribute to how much is absorbed, how much gets in our bodies, and how toxic they are. So the other characteristics of these nano and microplastic particles that can impart toxicity include the surface coating. So there are some examples here of different ways that the particles can be coated, and that's going to affect everything from how it's absorbed to where it goes in the cell. Then you also have shape. So shape is a really big one. So when we talk about diameter across a spherical particle, that's one type of microplastic, but there are also smaller fibers, there are irregular shapes, there are films, and all of these shapes are going to affect, again, how toxic nano and microplastic is. There's additives. So the examples that are shown here, plasticizers, flame retardants, and I think that's PCB, is that CL? Yeah. So, you can have all of these chemical contaminants either added, right? Added to the plastic for whatever function they were designed to serve, or for things like PFAS and PCBs, which are present in the environment and sort of just leach onto plastics, you could have them as contaminants. So that introduces a whole other aspect of toxicity to a chemical. And then you have the starting plastic itself. So you have all the different numbers, polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, like what is the actual starting plastic? So when you think about all the different permutations of how many different particles are possible out of all these combinations, it's billions probably. And then of course, if you take a laboratory and you just study one of those combinations, you're not really representing what's found in the environment, which is a crazy mixture of all these. So there are no comprehensive studies of these particles in the diet. So the The report did review the research showing that the microplastic particles were found in seafood and fish. That's probably the one that we hear the most about. Salt, beer, honey, milk, rice, sugar, and seaweed. But they did point out that most of the commonly consumed food products, which you see in that graph there, haven't been tested. So you can see that the most commonly consumed food category is cereal, fruits, roots, vegetables. And so there are really not very good methods for measuring these nano and microplastic particles in these most commonly consumed food groups. Although they do talk about packaging contributing to the presence of these particles, which is probably something you're all aware of. That's why you're here. But they don't go into a lot of in-depth science about, exactly how much contributes under what conditions, because it's all so completely variable.
Do you know the mechanism by which it's transferring from packaging to the food?
It sounds like some of it could be physical, just, physical contact, some of it's heat, humidity, pH, all of the, the contact time. So all those factors are going to influence, as well as all the things we talked about in the beginning. So the composition, the surface coating, moisture of the vegetables, all of those things are going to impact how well those plastics get into the said food. And so in terms of health effects, the title of this WHO, oh, go ahead.
That last graph, the
Yeah.
vertical axis,
Mhm.
is there, what scale is that?
Grams per day consumption. So it's just showing you that people eat the most grams per day of cereal.
Right.
So it's just to make the point that even though microplastics are found in those things written at the top there, seafood, fish, salt, beer, honey, rice, etc., those that data may not represent most of our food consumption. So we really don't know about the very commonly consumed food groups, how many microplastics or how much microplastic is there.
All right, I didn't know if it was like ppb or ppt, but I see it's.
Yeah, no, it's just consumption, just to show that like the data that we have is only representing a very small portion of our overall diet. So in terms of health effects, inhalation and dietary are the most common routes of exposure. At this point, there's not enough information to really parse out what is the greatest route of exposure. Human health impacts from inhalation are pretty well understood. So we've had inhalation of particles, especially in occupational settings, since the 70s. And so that can lead to, not surprisingly, physical damage to the lungs when you talk about very small particles getting into that deep part of the lung. You guys are probably looking more at ingestion as you're thinking about microplastics that end up in food. The bottom line is there's really limited hazard characterization. So that's the formal way of saying we don't have enough science to say exactly how toxic and in what way these chemicals are, these nano and microplastic particles are to human health. Some of the endpoints that have been looked at are listed there: immune system, liver, energy metabolism, and reproduction. But again, with all the variability in terms of what microplastics are, it makes the laboratory and toxicity assessments pretty hard. The end.
Really a lot of information to fit into a 5 or 10 minute presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't time it.
That was good. Good. Does anyone in the room have any questions, or Billy or Aaron on the line? Do you have any questions?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've had problems with this microphone lately. Thank you for that. That's super helpful. So I know you're looking at the impact of plastics on human health, but do you have like sources of data for what are the most common sources for microplastics in Vermont's water and land?
I would ask someone at DEC if there's any monitoring of microplastics in Vermont's water and land. I'm certainly not aware of any. And from the information that I've gathered, the methods are pretty difficult to come by. I know public drinking water is monitored based on MCLs, and there's no MCL for microplastics. So my guess is there's not a lot of data, but.
Yeah, Billy, I don't think the data set exists. I just don't know that I've heard of that the study exists, but we will certainly ask around and see if there's anything we can glean. I know there's a couple studies kind of underway to get at that a little bit in some agricultural soils and stuff, but that's kind of forthcoming.
I will say in the WHO I guess it's a paper, but it has a lot of pictures. So it's like a presentation / picture PDF. They have a whole section on drinking water. So what's been found in terms of microplastics, obviously not from Vermont, but there's a lot of information there. So it might be, there's a lot of information from bottled water, tap water, and well water.
Okay, and I'd also like that. So you're looking at the, information, and you're noting the EPA as the authority and a source for reliable guidance. And you mentioned that there are a lot of scientists at EPA and scientists working with EPA. And I'm wondering, why is it that you rely on the EPA as the source of data? Why doesn't the state of Vermont just create its own rating system for toxins?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the best answer is we don't have the capacity to do it. So the information that came out for PFOA was 894 pages, and take that times, we have guidance values for probably 200 different chemicals, and we just don't have the capacity to do all the research and publish it. They publish draft, they get peer review, they edit it, they have a scientific advisory board. We just don't have that structure to create toxicity values.
So are there any instances where the state has created its own measurements that are counter to what the EPA has suggested?
There are times when we use a toxicity value differently from how EPA uses it. So once we take the dose not to exceed, we combine it with Vermont specific exposure estimates. And so that's pretty common, but I don't know that I don't think that we've ever created a different toxicity value than what EPA has offered. There have been times where there's no toxicity value for certain chemicals, and we've had to create one, but in my 10 years, there's probably been 5 or less of those.
So the EPA is the reliable source.
Yeah, the EPA is one of the authoritative bodies. Occasionally, you'll see these values come out from World Health Organization. So if you work with dioxins, like toxic equivalency factors, those were published by WHO. So it's WHO, EPA, ATSDR, which is the toxicology branch of CDC. So there are a few authoritative bodies that we look to, but yeah, EPA is one of the primary ones that publishes these toxicity values for health departments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question just regarding sort of the procedure around recommendations around these things. So as you were sort of presenting those cups of risk, or however you were defining them, keep getting gradually smaller over time. And with, say, PFAS in mind, I have an uncle who drives truck for a food distributor, mostly servicing like convenience stores. 15 years ago, they were being advised by their company that they had to wear latex gloves when handling all this packaged food because of PFAS. So there's been a fair amount of awareness, much longer than the public's had awareness on these issues. If we're basing our tolerances on known information alone, and we know that keeps trending to a smaller and smaller concentration, as a consumer, that's a little distressing to see that we're only basing it on known information that it gradually keeps getting refined. And I'm wondering, from your standpoint, like from a policy perspective, how do we get out in front of that? Like, what's the posture that needs to change to make sure that our tolerances reflect risk as opposed to known information?
Yeah. I think if you look at the way that chemicals are regulated in the EU, you'll see a much different framework. So they have a more blanking on the approach. Somebody knows it. Thank you. Whereas here, it's very much allowed for use in consumer products and, in ways that expose the general public until it's proven to be a hazard. So I don't think it's a Vermont specific issue. I think it's a much larger systematic way that chemicals are regulated in the US. But I guess we do in Vermont, we keep up with the science, right? So if the risk cup changes, we're going to change the values. So we can only act on what we know, but we do always look for information and try to keep as up to date as possible.
But that, I mean, like as the person sort of chief in charge of the state's well-being and health, like does that, I mean, I'm looking in at Maine, you know, the EPA hasn't really been out in front enough, it seems, to protect the human population in the US. I'm just curious, like, can you imagine the Department of Health sort of beginning to reshape an approach that gets farther out in front so that we're not providing needless exposure until that, I mean, I look at lead, it took us way too long for the EPA to keep studying lead. We knew that there was impacts over a 30-year period. Something in the formula for the way that we're doing the policy seems to put us in a very reactive place and therefore increase exposure. And it just seems unnecessary to me. And as a farmer, when I look at Maine, I feel like, you know, regulators let farmers and the public down. I don't know how much you're following Maine, but I wonder how those things can kind of inform how we go forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's probably beyond what I do in my science role, but I can definitely take that back to our policy team as a, you know, as feedback that I got from the group. But it would, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm more on a personal, I'm just curious, like, can you, is there space to like, for the sake of well-being in the state, might there be a necessary tweak to the approach to be more preventative?
I think one of the things that we come up against is that we have to have scientific basis for everything that we do. So if we produce a drinking water, you know, we don't actually make standards, we make guidance because we don't have regulatory authority. But if we make a guidance value and then DEC decides to adopt it as a standard, it undergoes some very rigorous public comment. So every single scientific support is required and it gets a lot of pushback. And so if a standard were to be put through that was sort of very proactive and like you said, based on potential risk, or like we're worried about this, it wouldn't have that scientific merit that may be needed to withstand the whole, you know, rulemaking and, you know, whatever happens when people sue or, you know, that this is way beyond me. But you know what I mean? You have to have that really rigorous scientific support to get things through.
But where's that anchor, that merit in the law?
Where is it anchored?
I mean, there's a state policy, for example, to keep plastics out of food waste that are used then at higher priority use. I haven't read in the review of the law that there would be that scientific merit. It seems like the state has to do anything in its power to prevent that contamination.
Yeah, I mean, I think my experience is really a very small sliver. So you guys probably have a much bigger and broader perspective. I think, so I'm speaking from my experience of making, you know, so we take the toxicity value and we make a acceptable level for any chemical in air, water, soil, right? And then that goes into one of DEC's rules, which requires scientific support. But so that's not to say that what you guys are doing, you guys could do something a little bit different.
And I think the stakeholder group recommendations, you know, there's freedom there to wait for the science, but we know how much is missing in terms of what we're trying to figure out here. So there's also an opportunity to take a more proactive. The differences between the two roles there.
I have a question. So you laid out those different risk cups for substances that are widely distributed in the environment. Would that risk cup shrink based on background levels, or does the risk cup stay the same?
So the risk cup itself stays the same. But what you might find is that for chemicals that are present in our environment, the cup might already be halfway full just from, you know, what you're getting through the food or what you're getting through the soil. You know, we think about chemicals like arsenic. Arsenic is a really potent carcinogen, and it's the 16th most common element in the Earth's crust. So not surprisingly, we're all exposed to a good amount, no, not a good, a large amount of arsenic. So our risk cup for arsenic is just overflowing like crazy. Yeah, so when we have an occasion to make a quantitative value for here's how much you can be exposed to, if we do know that the risk cup is partially full from so much that's already in the environment, we can take that into account.
Is there, like, is there terminology that would explain or express what that is? Like, is there values that exist now for PFAS? I guess is the question that I'm asking, kind of going beyond that risk cup and starting to quantify further, or do those not exist?
Yeah, so I can give you my answer, but again, I think that I have such a narrow, so I'm trying to make sure it's not too narrow of an answer, but the way that we use those toxicity values is we combine them with exposure estimates. So for example, for drinking water, we say, you know, here's the dose not to exceed, here's how much water the most sensitive population drinks. And then we say we're going to apply a 20% relative source contribution. So for drinking water, we say only 20% of your total risk cup of your PFAS exposure can come from water, because we know that there's PFAS in food. We know that there's PFAS in lots of other places. So you wouldn't want to let 100% of all of your PFAS come from drinking water, knowing that there's more in the environment.
I have a question about just going back to what you were presenting. So is it reasonable to say that microplastics present a PFAS risk because of the nature of what's in those plastics to begin with, given that sort of risk?
I think that some nano and microplastic particles could have PFAS in them.
Like food packaging would be one of the sources of that.
Yes.
And then you didn't get into some of the other things, but I've been reading a certain amount of research about microplastics also becoming vehicles for the uptake of heavy metals and other potential risks. Is that something you can?
Yeah, so in that slide that showed sort of those petals of microplastics, one of the petals included chemical contaminants or, you know, plasticizers, flame retardants, things that are added. So certainly those microplastics could also come with a whole, you know, hundreds of different other toxic chemicals that you would then be worried about.
Then the last part to that is you presented all those different sort of source materials, like the different types of plastics. Do you guys have a clear insight into what the highest risk materials are?
You mean numbers 1 through 7?
Sure.
Or
other materials that we may be considering in the food chain that may be ending up in soil.
Just thinking about the toxicity of plastics 1 through 7, and this is just sort of anecdotal, I know I've read it somewhere, but 1, 2, and 5. So the polypropylene, polyethylene, and the one is poly PET, I forgot what it stands for. Those are the quote okay ones. So they're, you know, like your yogurt containers are polypropylene, your Ziploc bags are polyethylene. So I think those are when I'm buying plastic to eat out of, those are the ones that I try to buy. Yeah.
Maybe one more question about just to understand the department's work and like what would be like a corrective procedural process that might kick into place when the department noticed that the public is exposed to intake of microplastics to a different degree. So let's say now we have depackaging is permitted, it's happening, there's land application of slurries, food production on that land, that food will be consumed. Now UVM has this ongoing study about microplastics and the different feedstocks. And we see today in the handout that depackaging has about a 5-fold higher count of those microplastics than compost, for example. And I wonder if the department is monitoring these activities to some degree, and is there like a backtracking mechanism to sort of say stop? If, let's say, our group doesn't exist, what would happen from a Department of Health perspective, noticing that potentially there's a contamination risk here?
Yeah, I think it would probably flow the same way it would work for any other chemical. So typically, EPA or some other authoritative body would develop a toxicity value. So some authoritative body would say, okay, this is the amount, and with microplastics, it would be pretty nuanced, right? Because they would have to explain what size, shape, et cetera. But someone with authority would say, this is the amount of microplastics not to exceed. And so if that scientific information became available, federal agencies like FDA would have an opportunity to create federal standards. And sometimes you see that, like arsenic in apple juice. You know, they have a standard for some chemicals in some food products. So that would be the first chance for public health intervention. And if they didn't do that, the health department could then look at, is it something that we would provide advice on?
And the advice, could that have a regulatory effect? Would that be like the guidance? Would that hinder the permit and practice in any way? Does Vermont have a mechanism in place to have a change in practice be in effect faster than a federal regulatory?
I don't think that authority is within the health department. I think the authority would be within DEC, as they're the regulators of this process. But, you know, and then again, this is several levels above me, but I know that our policy folks work with DEC policy folks. And, you know, although we're not regulatory, we certainly offer like scientific support and help to make these regulatory rules protective of health. So it would be coordination at that level.
Yeah, and this
Billy,
is
did you have a
Josh.
question?
Yeah, I wanted to go to Billy for the last question, just to
No,
just
I'm
in
good.
respect
Thank
to
you.
Brent Demers and
Yeah, no, thank
and
you.
Dr.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I have time as well.
Okay, but I wanted to first just thank you, Dr. Vos, for the detail. And obviously, people have a lot of questions. I think it's good, but I'm just trying to be mindful of time, your time, and the time of the group, and our next speaker, Brent. Any last final questions? I guess.
I was going to say, you're also welcome to follow up. I mean, Ben obviously has my contact info, so happy to help with additional time if that's needed.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too.
Drive
Thank
safe.
you.
Right. Next up, we have Brent Demers from City Market. He's the Assistant Director of Operations and Logistics. And I think he's probably smack in the middle of two massive projects, at least that I heard from him, construction and craziness. So I appreciate your time, Brent. And thanks for waiting. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Guess I'll introduce myself briefly. Brent Demers. I've been at City Market for a combined, I think, 20 years now, and have been in charge of a variety of departments. One piece is our environmental framework and sustainability practices. So I do my best to keep up on all of the changes that continue to happen in the waste management world, or the organics management world. I have some of your questions up here. I think I'll just run through them as quickly as I can, and then I guess if anyone has any questions after. The first question was around the food hierarchy, and if we're familiar with it. Yes, we are. We do try to use that to influence how we manage our organics. The second question is, what are your current food waste reduction and organics management policies? I'm not going to read off, our policies in particular, but we focus on getting food to people first, and we have two stores, just to give an idea of how many tons of organic material we have. It's about anywhere from 300 to 350 tons a year between our two locations. We have a Lean Path program. If you're not familiar with Lean Path, it's a program that we operate out of our prepared foods departments, where It helps with a little bit of accountability with staff training, but it helps reduce the waste that's created with preparing food. So the example is I'm cutting a green pepper, and if some people are kind of lazy, they might cut the top off and throw the whole top away. But we want to use up as much of that green pepper as possible. So each individual person actually has their own code. They punch it in, weigh the trimmings from whatever they're making, and it gives you kind of a breakdown, some data on how well you did. So we try to dial that in. It's kind of a training piece. All of our compost from our prepared foods departments, it doesn't contain any packaging whatsoever. Pretty clean material. And moving on to like the produce department, a lot of the trimmings that come out of the produce department, again, a very clean mix in there as well. And we keep our bins separated for department to department, just in terms of, especially with our meat department, we don't want to mix those containers together. One thing I will mention that we did try, based on the food hierarchy, was feeding animals. And I'll speak to that a little bit just because it's one area that I'd like to continue exploring, but there really isn't an infrastructure in place for it. So several years ago, we started working with a chicken farmer that was operating out of the Intervale, and they wanted to pick up our food scraps to feed their chickens, and we ended up creating a program around that. We've had it fail in the past, but I created a program where we had like 16 bins. So 8 bins would go to, they would come pick them up in a van, and they were, I think, 30-gallon containers, just heavy enough to get for them to get into the van and drive them down to the Intervale, and then clean out the containers and bring them back. We had some guidelines for staff. No, there definitely couldn't be any of the tags or rubber bands that some of the produce comes in with. They couldn't have things like, an avocado pit or potatoes. I guess chickens don't do well with potatoes. So here's what I found. So basically, we operated for a good 6 months with that program. The farmer producer had to end the program, partly because it was kind of backbreaking work for him. It was working on our end. We operated solely out of the produce department because we knew that it was just produce glean, and there wasn't a mix of other materials like prepared foods, and we definitely didn't want the meat and seafood department contributing to that. Ended the program partly because they weren't supplementing a protein, like a pellet protein, into the diet. So there was a huge reduction in egg production. So that kind of paired with it being, not sustainable from a transport and labor standpoint. It did save them quite a bit of money overall in the end, and it seemed to be a good program that we'd like to continue working with local farmers that could use the material for animals. But I think there would have to be system in place, some infrastructure that would make it easy, because a lot of the pig farmers are really too far away for us to partner with. And I think some of the farmers really need to know that what kind of a blend of food that that they would need to make it successful. Since then, we haven't engaged with any farmers, producers about feeding animals, but would like to, and keep that in mind in future. The food, let's see here. So all of our food scraps get picked up by Casella, and they, as you might all know, were being brought to Green Mountain Compost for many years until that changed to be brought to the Depack facility. And of course, I had a lot of questions about that because, well, I guess before I go into that piece of it, I'll talk a little bit about feeding Chittenden and the food that we have that might be in a package. We do a lot of donations to feeding Chittenden. They come and pick up 3 to 4 days a week, and a lot of the food that, so we track our shrink. And we also track what we're giving to the food shelf. Some of those numbers were skewed over the last year, so I don't really have good data to share with you on how much we've donated. But you know, if we have food that is in a package, if it can be frozen, it goes in the freezer until Feeding Chittenden comes and picks it up. If there's bread, if there's any prep foods products, we try to do our best to get as much of that food to Feeding Chittenden as possible. The other stuff is really, our receiving department does a really nice job on getting credit on products that, you know, we can't sell with all of our vendors, and we track that through a credit tracker system. And a lot of those products get picked up and brought back to warehouses. So I guess I'll stop there with that. When I heard that our organic waste was going to the Depack facility, we don't, I guess what I wasn't visible to is that some of a lot of the other big grocery stores have packaged food that goes in the trash. I can tell you that we don't operate in that way, and so the material that goes into our food scraps that is being hauled away is you know, it's, yes, you know, I'm not going to say it's not contaminated at all, but we just, you know, we have our material was a good option for Green Mountain Compost, and you know, when we think about you know, our partnership with them over the years, it's been really good. We've tried to tell the story that, you know, our food scraps are going to Green Mountain Compost, and, you know, it's benefiting agriculture in certain ways. I'm just going to look at the questions again here because I kind of jumped around. Do you have any concerns with the current organics management practices in Vermont? Food donation, agricultural use, compost, digestion, rendering. I guess I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Yeah, and Brent,
Because
you don't have to necessarily follow the questions if it's not, I mean, I think you did a pretty good job of doing the overview, and maybe we can open it up to questions now from the group or from the public.
yeah,
I want to be mindful of your time.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. As I'm reading through the questions, I think I covered most of it. So
I think so too.
So I've got a question, Brent. You mentioned that your streams are very clean and that you segregate even your bins within departments to keep them clean and they don't really have any packaged food in your disposal system. And we heard different things from other grocers previously in this body that they really like the convenience of having one bin where they can put all their packaged food and their produce and their bakery and all of that. Sounds like for you, that's not something you need, that you're figuring out how to source separate just fine. Is that true?
yeah, yeah, we source separate pretty well. And you know, I don't think there's a need for us to have this like one bin that everything goes into. We've operated in this way for many years, and we try to do our best at following CSWD guidelines, and the changes that are made within that. Most recently the compostable plastic and paper packaging products, and trying to do our best to keep that out of the organics stream.
I think Billy's got his hand up. Billy?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that you followed the hierarchy, and I was just curious, are you talking about the EPA hierarchy or are you talking about the state of Vermont hierarchy?
The Vermont food recovery hierarchy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We just keep that in mind when we're managing our organic waste resources.
It sounds like you all are doing amazing things there and have been for a while and have been early adopters. But it sounds like now your material is going to Depack. Can you walk us through sort of, how you arrived at that decision?
Yeah. So I can't remember when it was last year, but it was so December. I think it was December of 2019. I can't, or 2020. There was an article in the 7 Days that came out talking about the depackaging facility, and I didn't really think much of it. And after several months after that, I learned that our material was not going to Green Mountain Compost anymore, and that wasn't something that Casella was forthright about from the beginning. They were making changes, and I discussed this with Mike, and we in the end went and visited the Depack facility, but it was a decision that wasn't made by us, and I shared my frustration with Mike, and it was something that I kind of reached out to. I was frustrated enough where, I reached out to some of the other school, UVM, Champlain College, to hear from them about their experience, and they experienced the same thing. Although UVM was able to get a separate truck to bring their material back to Green Mountain Compost, Champlain College and City Market wasn't really able to, and I also didn't want to jump. I didn't want to be reactionary. Yes, I was frustrated that I didn't get a communication about the change coming, or that it was happening. Like I said, we tell the story, and we actually bring our staff on on field trips to see the Green Mountain compost facility, and for some time we were doing that, and our material wasn't even going there. So in talking a little bit further with Champlain College, I wanted to take a pause and learn a little bit more about depackaging, anaerobic digestion, and what's actually happening. I wanted to visit the facility. I know that there was a study happening on PFAS, microplastics, and I got to the point where I felt like, well, I don't have enough information to know if I should really push to have our material brought back to Green Mountain Compost. Are we contributing to microplastics that may cause health issues later on for Vermonters? Is the soil amendment going on our agricultural soils in Vermont, is that bad? And should we just be sticking with Depack, regardless of the fact that we have a clean enough product that would benefit Green Mountain Compost? And so really, and knowing that this stakeholder group has been working on stuff, I really just took a hold and said, I'm going to wait and see what everyone kind of comes up with, if that study actually shows that there's any health risk, because we don't want to be contributing to health risk either. But I can't make these decisions in a vacuum either. I have a senior team that I need to bring this stuff back to and educate them on, so that we can all make a good decision. In the end, even if we decided that we wanted our material to go back to Green Mountain Compost, I'm pretty sure there'd be an added cost involved in that from Casella, outside of getting away from Casella entirely, and coming up with our own community-based organic material moving system and move our materials ourselves, and not have to lean on Casella for that, and have more control over where our material goes. So since January of last year, I believe, maybe longer, they couldn't really tell us exactly when they started bringing our material to the Depack facility. I guess over the course of time, they started moving certain businesses as they kind of built up their infrastructure. And then it kind of became 100% of what Casella used to be bringing to Green Mountain Compost, which, as I understand it, was making up about 50% of Green Mountain Compost's material, which I'm sure that was a pretty huge detriment to the investments they've made for that size of infrastructure for Green Mountain Compost.
Caroline?
Yeah, hi Brent. My name is Caroline Gordon. I'm here representing rural Vermont, but in my other part-time job, I'm also an assistant manager in our local co-op called the South Royalton Market. And I was offering some anecdotes about how we manage our food scraps here in the past. And I'm really appreciating you speaking here with the group today, and kind of underlying the fact that I was trying to make is that in the co-op world, the environmentally friendly mindset of all staff and management does allow for effective source separation. And I really appreciate you sharing how the available service through depackaging has changed how you manage a little bit, or how the organics you generate are being diverted. I did follow up with our general manager about the anecdotes I made here to just confirm with facilitation team what I stated here in the past. So I just forwarded an email to you, Mia.
Yep.
So that you have another testimonial that underlines that there is a world of grocers here in Vermont that is happily source separating.
Yeah.
Brent, and I'm sorry if you already touched on this. I'm trying to just multitask.
Mhm.
Before, was your food going to your packaged food? Were you disposing of that in the trash prior to the depackager, or were you? I guess I'm asking before Casella started taking all in one. Did you have separate bins? I just missed that in the minutes for the packaged food and then for the store separated.
So, well, the packaged food is really either going to Feeding Chittenden,
Okay.
or it's being returned to the vendor. A lot of the vendors, some vendors, we call them pay by scan. They actually come in and merchandise their own product, and what they don't sell, they have to take back and give us credit on. So they're actually coming in and removing it. A lot of the bread vendors operate in the same way, but you know, even before, like if we had like some packaged stuff that was bad and we couldn't get credit on it, and we didn't want to give it to the food shelf, we would actually open up a package and throw,
Okay.
like separate it and rinse out the plastic. And I will say there's one instance where the depackager would come in handy for us. And that's if we have a major refrigeration failure. And we have a lot of product that we just, we don't have the labor to separate the packaging from the food in that instance. So, but the last time that happened was 2017 when we opened up our South End store. It got really cold. Our defrost schedules weren't synced up, and our rack went down just around Christmas time, actually. And in that instance, having a depackage machine, the depackage system would be something where I'd want to bring all that product to.
Great. Thank you for clarifying.
All right. Do we have any last questions for Brent before we move on? I know we're kind of short on time for the discussion portion of today, but. Aaron, do you have any questions? I know you're online.
No, I appreciate Brent coming in and sharing his processes, and we certainly appreciate the co-op's efforts to, do what they can to support the nonprofits and streamline their processes within management of the hierarchy. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, Aaron. I guess the last thing I'll say is just to reiterate that co-ops, although we aren't all owned by one company or whatever. The co-ops, like there's 7 in our region that we really stay connected with, Hunger Mountain being one of them, Middlebury, and we all share information, communicate with each other about how we're managing our organics and trying to reduce landfill biomaterial. And so just want to mention that. The other thing that not everyone may know about is separate to organics. Last year we started, a small group of us started a film plastics recycling program. So it was a pilot program about a year ago. We've done about 10 loads so far in Burlington with a handful of businesses. So we're pretty proud of that. And that program is actually become sustainable and continuing, but overall it's how do we reduce our landfill biomaterial and how do we best manage where everything goes. So yeah, I guess if there are any other questions, do you need me to stay on?
No, I don't think so. I think what we'll do is if there's any other questions that come up, I'll just reach out to you directly, Brent, and then we can sort them out and I'll share with everybody. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks so
All right.
much.
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. So folks, turn it over to you guys. I don't know if any of the committee members want to discuss how far you might have gotten on a group dialogue document, or if you want to just go to the charges that are here. I'll open the floor to you all.
I haven't looked at I think you're referring to the group document that Tom had started. I haven't looked at it in a couple of weeks, but I know not much had happened. I don't know if anybody else has added to it, but.
But
Yeah, I've got all my comments. Okay, got quite a few, like disagree with a lot of it, so I think that's for me to even put comments in there. It's more like I want to scratch the whole thing. So, I mean,
The vision document, is that what we're talking
are you
about?
talking about the vision document or?
Well, you had two things. You had a vision document and you also had a working, you all were gonna do work offline in the Google Doc that Tom had set up.
that specifically the thing that's up there right now being the hierarchy.
Did you set out the Google Doc thing? Cause I didn't see that either. I saw the visioning statement and the FTP site pulled that down and made comments to that.
Yeah, it's all in that one folder
In the FTP or the Google Doc?
in the Google Doc.
I don't have the Google Doc.
Yeah, you're
Okay. Can you just resend it?
on. Yep.
I would think in the interest of time, we're at 10:40 or something and supposed to end in 18 minutes. I don't know how much the three charges we're gonna get through, but it seems like it's not now win.
Should we just take up charge one and start somewhere?
I think that's a good approach.
Yeah.
At least get
And you
some-
do have until 11:30.
Oh, right, great. 48 minutes. Easy. 47, sorry. So I think when it was introduced by whoever proposed it last time, we were supposed to just write it, bring a written thing and then share it. So do we go around and read our individual things or speak to the bullets, or do we want to limit time, or how do we want to tackle
I
that?
think you could start and see how we're doing and others have, we might ask, yeah. Start the conversation.
Well, I don't mind going first. So the first question being then, this statute is asking for recommendations on whether the organics management hierarchy at 10 VSA 665K should apply to each generator of organic waste. So from what I put was that we believe that the hierarchy in Act 148 was intended to apply to all generators and was written in a manner to provide the flexibility necessary for generators to choose how they manage the food scraps, depending on many factors. These include availability of and proximity to diversion opportunities, quality of food scraps, and cost. We believe that education should be the primary tool used for most generators rather than enforcement, and that enforcement should be used only for the largest generators, as has happened up to this point with all the 148 requirements. Applying strengthened requirements for large generators to ensure that they're always making a concerted effort to find the highest and best use for their disposed of organic streams would be a welcome change. Copying portions of the California models that require written agreements with food recovery organizations and expanding it to cover animal feed where appropriate would be preferable pathways for achieving improved adherence to the organics management hierarchy with any additional tracking requirements should be restricted only to the largest generators, or generally that it'd be great if we had some clarification from the state that yes, the hierarchy as written does in fact apply to everyone, but recognizing that enforceability is, unless there's some major changes in allocations and how things are designed around enforcement, that there can be more done to ensure that the largest amounts of food being disposed of go to the highest and best use. where there's availability and willingness of, end recipients. And that you only go to the lower rungs on the hierarchy when those have been exhausted. And some more guidance from the state, clarification from the state that it does in fact apply to everyone, but guidance particularly for the largest generators. More requirements perhaps for the largest generators, similar to what's being done in California, I think would be beneficial. Next, I think that's what we want to do, probably like hear from everyone and then.
Did you have
discuss.
any sense of what you all were thinking about as larger, what your definition of larger generator is or no?
In my mind, that's mostly grocers and largest food producers. I don't know what that number is, but maybe following something similar to the first steps, the first year in, what was it, 26 tons per year or something? I don't know. I haven't thought much about
Okay,
where that line should be drawn.
Thanks, Dan. Did anyone else have a chance to come up with answers to the questions over the holiday break? Anybody want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. And I do think we should just have people go through a fire around that conversation.
That works.
So I have just kind of two draft bullet points. These are not finalized, just pull them together. So one is, I do think it may be helpful to define generators and make clear what a generator is and what it's not. I think it would make sense to not include waste haulers as generators. I know that's kind of the understanding now, but I do think it is somewhat confusing in that, like, if someone has that material in their truck, what does that mean? And then the other one was hired and contracted services should not allow waste to avoid separation requirements. So if an entity, has that waste picked up, that waste still needs to be separated and meet source separation requirements. So those are the two I had. Turn it over to whoever's next.
I can go next. I mean, I think recommendations on the organics hierarchy should apply to each generator of organic waste. I have a harder time with that because I think there is a lot of unknowns. And I think one of the biggest things for me is currently some of the materials we cannot handle due to other classifications. And do we need to understand and develop a process on how we handle those, right? As being the hauler, like what are those exemptions and what are we going to be allowed to do? Just because when we do have the fridge go down at the night before Christmas, I've got to make a determination. I either got to call the state. We don't want to break the law. We don't want to do anything that we shouldn't be doing, but I'm sitting there with a pile of food on Christmas, right? That I've got to do something with. Or so those policies and those processes need to be kind of vetted out. Like apple cider vinegar would be another big one. I think the second piece I had is we need to develop systems and processes to ensure we're not doing harm to animals for feed. So I think like the whole organics industry really needs to be looked at, and what are those regulations going to be put on all the organics, people that are managing organics and those streams. Like, I know you do a great job. I know there's a lot of other great composters, but I also do think there's like, what are those standards for everyone else so that everyone's held to the same beat of music, so that, hey, we're looking at contamination. Because, and just even with the customers that we service, City Market, one of the best at keeping their material really clean. You could have another customer, they don't keep it as clean, right? So you're always having those variability when you're picking materials. So what are those rules? What are those standards? When are we allowed to throw the material away because we don't have a customer that's complying? And then what's that trigger that happens to move it down to the next path? But I'm not as big of a fan of making it law, because I feel like there's some of these other things that we really need to. I think it should be, yeah, that's the process that we follow, but it shouldn't be law until we can vet some of these other things out.
Like, just for clarity purposes, when you're talking about the animal feed stuff, were you talking overall, or were you speaking specifically about the commercial feed pathway, or?
Well, I mean, but like
the farms?
I think that, right, that the fact that you're even asking that question, like, kind of concerns me, because we go down this thing and this says food for animal beats out composting and anaerobic digestion. So, okay, tomorrow you say, we're gonna follow this by law. I build a process through the DPAC to say, turn it into animal feed, and you're saying to animal feed, we're higher on the hierarchy. It shouldn't have to go to green compost, right? Like, and I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do, but like, what are the goals of what we're trying to accomplish?
I guess my quick sentiments, I largely agree with a lot of what Mike just laid out. And I think fundamentally, I think the hierarchy is a really powerful tool to make sure that we do, as Mike was sort of saying, we're all playing from the same sheet of music. So I think it creates a market and industry standard and baseline expectations so that we're all playing by the same rules. I think a lot of those things, like the piece about animal feed, I think that's of utmost concern. I don't think that's within the scope of this group. I think that's where Agency of Ag regulates animal feed, for instance, and the folks that handle recovered food will clarify what is suitable for food recovery. I think the thing that's kind of come up in these conversations is better clarifying that piece that Mike's saying a little bit about the determination. So Josh offered at one point the willing and able language. I think that inserting some willing and able language would help clarify a lot of these things. It's not on Ben and Jerry's to insist that the food bank take ice cream that they don't want. If the food bank doesn't feel that that's suitable for them, then there's nobody who's willing. And if City Market can't find somebody to pick up for livestock feed, they don't have somebody who's able. So I think in those cases, then that's the whole purpose of the hierarchy is when you've exhausted those options, you knock down to the next piece. And I think the piece about legislating it is really clarifying what the boundaries in the systems are, and they help us to not just sort of hope for certain outcomes, but insist on certain outcomes. And I think that's the goal of policy, is to establish something for the common cause that is greater than the interest of any one of us individually.
Billy or Aaron, you want to go next?
Sure. So I still have questions more than I have a statement. And one of those rests on, because we're a national company. We have facilities in development in 25 states. So we're not solely focused on Vermont, but obviously we want to be a good partner here in this state where I live. And one of my questions centers on how much do we want to rely on data? How much do we want to rely on the body of scientific evidence that's out there? And when does it make sense for us, or when do we decide that we're just going to follow our own local interests? And this, I believe, is one of those cases. And the reason why I ask that is because the food recovery hierarchy in the state of Vermont differs from the EPA's hierarchy. And we heard from Sarah Vos that they follow EPA's guidelines because the state doesn't have the resources, the data, the scientists, or the process to gather its own data. But here in the state of Vermont, we saw fit to change the hierarchy that 48 other states follow. So is this one of those cases where our understanding supersedes the EPA's, or are we willing to modify the EPA, the hierarchy in the state of Vermont to align with what other states follow the EPA's hierarchy? So that's mostly where I sit.
Can I just, oh, sorry, actually.
Thanks, Billy.
Aaron, do you want to go?
Sorry, couldn't get my camera on. Yes, thank you. I can certainly appreciate certain parts of Dan's comment on the hierarchy, providing flexibility as necessary. And I certainly agree with Mike's comments about the entire industry needs to be reviewed and we need to set standards and rules that need to be clarified. We heard from many members of ours that I think clarification is top priority. They reported that they have heard different guidance from the department. So I think clarifying, in black and white would provide better guidance for generators. But we also have heard from many of our members that, similar to what Billy just said, we would prefer to streamline the guidance and revert back to the EPA hierarchy, because there are companies and organizations that do operate across state lines or regionally and sometimes nationally. And it's just simpler, it's easier for them to focus on one hierarchy instead of having two separate ones that they have to maintain. I think Josh is frozen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I'll turn off my camera for a second. Let me just be so bold as to say this is some sort of progress, just to actually get all your opinions out on the table. So I guess what I want to say is I am nervous about trying to support you in writing a report in time, which probably you're all very aware of. Would it be, again, so bold as to have you write up your comments on this topic? That could become, I'm looking to Ben and Mia also for their opinions on this, part of the report. And then and what I'm thinking is, so yeah, it would be, an Aaron Segrist, a Tom Gilbert, a Billy Connolly perspective, and this is what they think. And then if there's any commonalities, maybe we can maybe there's a paragraph that could draw out any commonalities that might be there, and you guys can approve or veto down that paragraph. That seems like one fairly simple way to move forward. Ben, what are your thoughts? Just to go to you immediately, that's probably forming in your brain as we
Put me
toss
on
it
the
out
spot, I guess.
You can think about it.
I'm open to any number of outcomes. I find it really difficult right now to come up with a report based off what the stakeholders have generated to date with a unified voice. So I like that approach you outlined, Josh, because it makes it a lot easier for the report writer to just say, here's the background and the information kind of in a summary, and then having, 7 supplements to that from each stakeholder. I like that idea, but I could go either way. So I'm flexible, whatever the group decides.
That sounds good to me. And I would echo that, like, progress for sure. And I also heard a lot of commonality, and I think what we all just said, that more clarification is needed by all Aaron's members and for everyone. So I don't know, there are points that can be pulled out in a comment, at least for the first one. We haven't gotten to 2 and 3, but
I think also just making sure that what we're trying to answer is the question here, as opposed to just general takes. So we've been asked a very specific question, which is whether or not it should apply to every generator. Like, that's really the charge that we have. So I think if we keep that focus, then it'll be easier to find common ground. And I'm pretty sure the majority of the group, was expressing that desire to see it apply to every generator with the right guidance and exemptions.
yeah.
Can I just ask a quick information clarification? So this situation with a freezer going down, would that fall under the de minimis provision as it reads now? I mean, would City Market, for instance, have an exemption in place with the current law as it reads?
I think in the past, that's the exact situation we've allowed to go to disposal.
Right.
And now I guess is the question of, is that still appropriate or not?
So, but I guess my question really is, like, does the de minimis provision provide some of that flexibility for those one-off cases where it's not the routine, but it's the exception?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
We do too. I just think for us, being as big as we are, we like very clear rules, right? So that we're not perceived as hey, we're throwing stuff into a landfill that we shouldn't, right? And I think that's where it always becomes challenging for Casella, because we're sitting there going, hey, organics can't go here. We know it's diminished and we have this out, but don't want to take it, right? So I think that's where we always kind of get wrapped around the axle, knowing, hey, we're always going to do the right thing. We want to go above and beyond, but we don't want that. Depending on who's sitting at the state, right? That perspective can change. It's kind of like the 10% contamination. Like we've dealt with it with C&D and other things too, where am I judging 10% or are you judging 10%? Both of us might judge it a little differently, right? So I think that's how do we have those guardrails that are really clear so that it's like automatically goes through. Like there's no question and there's no issues, right?
I agree with both, like the need for more clarification on the sort of the emergency situations, maybe, just best uses of certain materials, but I also think that it would call that situation would qualify for the de minimis because they're obviously have a program in place to sort of separate. It's not a planned event. It seems like it would be like custom to a T exactly the de minimis option. So they do have more options, whether or not they want to take that up, because they seem like they've got other mission statements in place, but I guess that would be up to them, I think.
I want to make sure, Jenna, I don't think Jenna's on the call. Right.
Yeah, I just second everything everyone said, and that those de minimis exemptions have been granted when we've been asked for those exact situations you're talking about. There was another co-op that had a storm surge that took out their freezer, and they were given a letter just to give them assurance and to give their hauler, I don't know if that was Casella at the time or not, but to give them assurance they could dispose of that material because they had a separation program in place for that. So again, being bold, should we continue down the list of items because each person is giving their perspective and then go around on the next item? Does that make sense?
I think that does make sense, probably. I mean, I had to have some follow-up questions, but I think we'll spiral quickly if we do that. So I think getting everybody throwing everything out and then see how far we get. And I'm not seeing anybody disagreeing. And since I went last time, anybody else want to go first? Then have two. Right. Number 2 question was whether the Agency of Natural Resources should modify its existing policy surrounding the source separation of organic wastes. And my position is that yes, the Agency of Natural Resources should modify its existing policy surrounding the source separation of organic waste that reflects the ANR DEC policy drafted in August of 2019. We all got a copy of it, is on the online platform, but was titled, the file name is like 2019.08.05 draft food residuals management policy version 2. To clarify, this policy should include prohibiting commingling of packaged and non-packaged food residuals, which degrades the quality of the food residual stream and severely limits options for further treatment or processing. The state should clarify its language to prohibit the commingling of these two streams in recognition of many outlets across the state that may be able to process these materials in a way that minimizes the amount of plastics and microplastics entering the environment. Requiring generators to send unpackaged source separated food residuals not suitable for donating or animal feed to a facility that will manage it separately from packaged food residuals throughout the entire treatment process. Clear definitions for lightly packaged and heavily packaged materials that are treated as separate waste streams. Generators should be allowed to send heavily packaged materials for unrestricted processing via depackaging for maximum nutrient recovery and landfill or incineration avoidance. Generators should be required to separate lightly packaged food residuals from their packaging and those residuals treated as all other non-packaged food residuals. Existing exemptions for very small generators such as convenience stores, as written in the document that was provided to us several weeks ago, such as convenience stores, should continue to be allowed so long as they have a food waste source separation program in place that staff are trained on and are utilizing. That's it for me.
All right. So 3 bullet points for this one. And kind of some of it could be taken as an either or. First one is ANR should change its source separation policy so that it does not packaged food in that source separation policy. Second bullet is create a separate definition for depackaged food as it does not fit squarely in food residual. And sender or receiver of waste needs to agree to source separate fully. Great.
So my 3 bullets, what processes do we have in place to dispose of contaminated material, right? It's a real concern with developing a system that ensures we have valuable material. I think that's always near and dear to my heart, because as soon as we get to some site, picking up, being one of the largest haulers, there's a lot of contamination that can happen. And through education, we can work on getting it better and better, but I think you're gonna have contamination no matter what, so having a necessary lever to pull to be able to stop that is great. Even if it did apply, would Vermont be able to force haulers outside of the state to comply with that rule? So I think that's another big question, just because it's a law, will they actually be able to enforce that on all haulers? So then at that point, you're gonna have us following the rules that are set by the state, and you're gonna have outside haulers that are gonna have a fair advantage to come into the state to offer services. So that's just one of my concerns. And then I think source separate doesn't, I think the other piece of source separation that you need to have in there is where you end up taking material that shouldn't be part of this. So having that flexibility to go to different facilities is still, I think any facility should have an ANR permit that is taking food scraps from customers, right? They should have an ag permit if they're feeding it to animals, and they should have an ANR permit as well, because they should be governed by those 2 bodies.
I guess just to kind of contextualize my input, I'll share 2 really quick anecdotes. One is we pick up both residential and commercial. And about a year ago, when I was out on the route collecting from an apartment building, I had a woman run out who also works at a grocery store that we used to collect from. And she was really, really confused about the fact that previously they had to source separate at the grocery store, and now they were just putting everything with its packaging in a container. But so she was confused about whether she still had to source separate at home. So I think the reality is we have to keep in context that whole systems approach that we're talking about, and sort of maintaining good, clear guidance and messaging kind of statewide. And then the other part is that I similarly, Mike's talked a lot about the imperfection of source separation, and I totally agree. And so I guess one of the things that I would qualify everything else I'm about to say is I think our standards this isn't about depack versus source separation. This is about protecting soil and human health. And so maintaining a very high expectation around source separation is the key to making source separation work. And I recently lost another grocery store to a composter, not to a depackager. And we end up actually tipping at the same facility. And so now when we go there, we tip right after this other operator. My crew is out working their tails off, picking contamination. I mean, if we see it, it's gone. Like that, we have a 0 tolerance policy. We will spend an hour extra at a generator to see that task through. I mean, we pick everything. So we show up with these virtually clean loads, and we're now tipping on material that we used to collect, but is full of plastics because the other hauler has a 0. They don't do anything for source separation. And it's insulting to a business, and it sends the wrong message when we're competing in the marketplace. We're losing those accounts on price because we're factoring in the effort to make sure that material is clean, including trainings and all these other things and finally picking. And so to me, really, yes, I think the agency needs to change it. It needs to go back to its earlier interpretations. We got a draft policy from 2019 that Dan referred to at the last meeting. I think this lays out really well why the policy is as it is and how it should be interpreted. I would encourage us to go back to that for the reasons that just came up in those anecdotes that I just shared, which is if we don't have a level playing field, we don't have a standard. And so then we leave it to market conditions to determine what the standard is, and that becomes a cost basis. And if it's strictly on a cost basis, everybody will continue to go for the lowest possible standard, which then is punitive to, say, an operation like Black Dirt Farm that is going out of its way to use highest and best practices. Food scraps are a commodity. They're not like a retail product. You know, we don't get like the value added benefit of, you know, doing a better job. Nobody sees the better job on the back end. So we can't leave it up to the market to determine the best practice. I think that there are a lot of things that I won't go into right now that could be done to really further the development of a social environment that does a better job with source separation. And so I think part of that, and we can get into those details later, but I would start by just simply saying, as we get into the next piece about depackaging, I think while there's probably agreement at the table about that there is a role for depackaging here, I think we want to maintain source separation as the umbrella, as the standard, and then provide very explicit exemptions for where other practices, be it de minimis or depackaging, fit in these very discrete ways so that we don't end up with what I think of as a really horrifying situation where we have a generator like City Market source separating to the T, doing a great job, having this very clean material, then getting blended with packaging. That just seems criminal in a moment where we know the risks around PFAS and microplastics. So where that risk doesn't exist, where we can source separate, by no means should we be allowing those things to cross some sort of barrier and actually add contamination back into clean material.
Just a quick follow-up question. So in terms of the policy, do you think, if I'm reading between the lines, it sounds like you support adding policy information for the haulers? The requirements that kind of level the playing field in the policy document that apply to all haulers? Is that kind of what you were saying? The level playing field or separate guides?
I think it's hard to not get into the weeds really quickly on this part, but yeah, I mean, I think that we should have a baseline standard that applies to generators and haulers. I think the onus should be on generators, but the thing is that the haulers become the intermediary.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, better clarifying
Just
those
trying to bring
roles.
it back to the policy. These needed to be, you were recommending it be modified in the policy itself.
I think that the hauler piece needs to be improved in the policy, but I also think more importantly are the state supports for haulers. I think haulers are being asked to kind of like go be the enforcer, be the operator, do a lot of things that are unreasonable, and that the state could be doing a lot more to like make it easier for haulers to be compliant.
Going through a new set of rules. I figure out that too.
Who wants to go next? Billy?
Sure. Again, I have questions because the impacts of this could be far reaching, not necessarily on my industry, but certainly in some regards. Do we have enough information and understanding of the full environmental impact? And are we willing to look at the full environmental impact of destinations and where the material goes, including the climate, air, water, soil, and ecosystem impact, not just the soil impact? I think we're sometimes getting a little bit myopic about the impact on soil, not taking into consideration, sorry about that, not taking into consideration the climate impact of the outcome from where the food waste ends up going, and the overall impact to the ecosystem. So as far as, do we want the existing policy to be modified? I think my response is not yet.
I'll keep mine brief. I don't believe that the Agency of Natural Resources should modify the existing policy without having data on the existing process and a system in place to obtain necessary data.
Did we lose the feed from Montpelier? I don't see anything.
We can hear you.
Can
My,
hear
s-
you.
my screen went blank.
Aaron,
We
can you hear us?
We
Yeah.
see you. I hear you.
Okay.
I see everyone.
Yeah, and I
see-
got an
we
email
see you,
from Jenna
Billy.
for some reason she couldn't get in. I don't know why. She had the right link.
Weird.
She said she tried 4 times.
Billy, can you, are you still missing us or? Oh, you're muted. Huh.
Yeah, it's muted.
I don't even know how to troubleshoot.
No, I can see Catamount now, but I can't see other participants.
I can see
All right,
you.
we'll
Blank,
try to
big
look into that.
blank area.
Still on camera.
Don't say anything foolish. We can still hear you.
I could spotlight Catamount. Maybe
I
that's-
think we'll try to keep going. We have the recording. We'll try to, maybe it'll come back too. Maybe it's just a bad internet connection.
So I think as a group, we gotta decide, do we wanna do number 3? Do we wanna have some conversation? And then there's also kind of the larger question of, are we just gonna take these responses and that's gonna be the report, or Ben and Mia and Josh gonna put something more together? I mean, what? Yeah.
I would say let's keep rolling
Yeah.
we've got momentum and see if we can get through. I mean, if we can spit it all out, then we're not gonna have any time to react probably, but at least it gives those 3 something to work with and can, find those common points, and then we can react to that next. You won't be here, but next Wednesday.
I'm gonna try and swing it if nothing else. I won't be here physically. I'm gonna see if I can be here digitally.
All right.
Possibly, so.
It might make sense for us to just make sure we have a little time at the end to clarify what that distillation process might look like, just to leave you with a little more direction.
Aaron and Billy, are both of you good with continuing on? The last one, try and keep it brief and get through it.
I'm good.
And I would also say if
Yeah.
Jenna watches this after the fact, like maybe she could submit hers separately for
Yeah, I think
equal consideration.
And if she does submit those, they can be
Yeah,
emailed or if
sure.
they're posted, just let us know, so.
All right, number 3, unless somebody else wants to go. The question was, any recommendations on the proper use of depackagers and the management of organic waste? My bullets are that depackagers as a class are most effective when carrying out their design purpose of separating food residuals from packaging. They can be particularly effective when processing homogeneous or nearly homogeneous loads of materials, such as streams of materials from food manufacturers. Vermont has many options from small to large for processing food residuals that are not in package form. While the data remain inconclusive, much concern remains about the increased likelihood of plastic fragmentation for certain food residual streams that are processed via depackagers due to the intense mechanical processes required for separation. Ongoing studies should be conducted to better understand the risks associated with depackaging and any increased potential of microplastics and PFAS related chemicals in the resulting outputs. Depackagers should not be allowed to process source separated organics. Processing source separated organics via depackagers adds an unnecessary step that requires additional transportation and processing inputs and likely renders these food residuals as non-viable for other organics recovery uses such as animal feed, chicken foraging, or composting. However, depackagers should be, I've got a caveat to that in a minute. Depackagers should be restricted to food residual streams for which they are best suited, packaged foods, and only be made available for processing source separated organics as a last resort once all other options have been determined to be unavailable or there's insufficient capacity for the willing and able piece that we've talked about within a reasonable distance be determined. Excessively contaminated source separated organics loads could be considered for processing via depackagers as a preferred option to landfilling or incineration. So this provision should be the exception rather than the rule in order to incentivize generators or haulers to prevent or decrease contamination levels. The convenience and efficiency arguments given by industry players should be measured against the inevitable degrading of available food residual streams in the state of Vermont if commingling of packaged foods and source separated organics is allowed to continue as the rule. If left to market forces alone, it is likely that statewide efforts to reduce contamination levels in organic streams will suffer, and the amount of food residuals suitable for animal feed, composting, and soil building will continue to decrease. As the appetite for food waste slurry to feed anaerobic digesters continues to grow, pressure to feed the beast will increase, and to the detriment of statewide soil health. Depackagers and digesters are important members of the team, but the state should be wary of making them the star players. The state should discourage the hub and spoke model, as this model increases greenhouse gas emissions from transportation and discourages local use of outputs on farms and in small to medium-sized compost operations.
All right, I'll go second. 3 bullet points on this. First is outputs from depackagers should not be used for animal feed or compost. And establish a PFAS and microplastics contamination threshold to guide their use. If no change to the Agency of Natural Resources source separation policy, ANR should regulate DPAC output as a solid waste, including sampling for microplastics and PFAS prior to export and tracking land application of those residuals.
For mine, I think we need more science and life cycle analysis to understand the highest and best use for products. I think that kind of gets back to Billy's point in the last one as well, just really trying to understand those. I think any infrastructure needs to have the same on the organics management regulation, whether it's a compost facility or a depack facility. I mean, you need to have those same type of regulations so that you're managing the streams the same. Otherwise, you're having competing forces where you're going to put one at a disadvantage to the other. I think that's half our issue. We were given the unfunded mandate to collect and have infrastructure as a hauler, and kind of met that without legislative funding. So I think now really trying to understand what that funding may look like and where it's needed to help and what the capacity is. I think the state really needs to have an understanding of where there is capacity, because I know there's been a lot of talk about material moving from one facility to another, but some of those facilities were at their capacity anyways. So they would have had to have massive investments in infrastructure to actually be able to handle more food waste, right? So I think this actually gives us a redundant system in the state of Vermont that we can kind of work through the science and understand and then determine what is the best, highest use. So my only point.
So I guess, you know, to me, the question of all of these things, source separation and depackaging, but since we're specifically talking about depackaging right now, really come down to risk mitigation and opportunity, leveraging opportunities. So the blending of source separated materials with packaged materials to be then further reduced in particle size and rendered incapable of being decontaminated later seems like an unacceptable risk to put the Vermont public at, especially in a time where I agree with Billy, we need to be looking at these full systems. And so soil, for instance, is really critical to our capacity to address global warming, and maybe more so than certain other things. And if we contaminate that resource, our ability to solve some of these bigger questions is limited. The thing about prioritizing source separation is that it always gives us the option of increasingly doing better, whereas at a certain point, once everything's blended together, we have the inability to extract contaminants. So I think, like like we all do, I believe, there's known streams of materials that are very hard or impractical to source separate. Depackaging seems like a fitting solution to those. And I think we should create space legally for depackaging. And I think that needs to go through the legislative process. I don't think rulemaking is sufficient since we have legislation specifying source separation, and that it should be treated as a very clear exemption. I think part of that should be a requirement that a business using depackaging should have an internal policy and program to make sure that, for instance, its employees understand how it's working as an exemption, and that it's not a ubiquitous alternative to source separation. And I think within all of that, in order to carve out those exemptions, we need to better clarify sort of what are really the packaged materials we're talking to. There seems to be a lot of confusion around actually how much packaged food we need to deal with. A lot of it's going back to warehouses. It's actually not a problem in the stores. A certain amount of it is very lightly packaged and very easily depackaged by hand, source separated. So further clarifying that, I think, is a critical piece of the work in front of us. The other two pieces that I wanted to offer on DPAC is that I think, while we haven't talked much about it as a group, the organic section of the universal recycling law is part of this larger law, which includes dry goods recyclables. And things like plastics recovery for recycling are of important merit. And the depackaging process really should not lead to the unnecessary landfilling or incineration of recyclable packaging, typically plastics. I think that would be, where we have one thing countering another part of the law seems impractical to me. And the last part is I totally agree with Mike. I think it's really important that every operator in the state, regardless of the destination of those materials, be held to the same standard. And I think it is totally within the power of the state of Vermont, and especially with the new environmental justice legislation that we have, to require that out-of-state facilities receiving Vermont materials are held to the common standard. We won't be permitting them, but we can ask that they register with us and that they show that they would otherwise be considered legal by our standards within our state. That would work within the Interstate Commerce Clause. And I totally agree that none of these things work if we have people operating under different guidance and different rules. So the packaging coming out of depackagers, where is that going? And is the use of that material, say, in incinerators in Maine, would that be legal in Vermont? If it's not legal in Vermont, then it shouldn't be part of the equation that we allow to happen with Vermont material.
So we're running up on time here. So I agree, definitely we have to look at the highest and best use and what that means from a holistic standpoint. Again, I'm going to ask the questions: how much do we want to rely on data? How much do we want to rely on science and the entire body of scientific information? And when do we just decide that our local interests supersede the existing national or international data that's available? And I'll put it out there that what would it take for the state of Vermont to consider committing resources to collecting data and collaborating on a regional level with other bordering states and those in our region, possibly New Hampshire, Maine, New York, and Mass, as well as Connecticut, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New Jersey, to look at these issues that impact us interstatally? And again, just a question.
I'll also be quick again. I believe that there's opportunity to set standards and benchmarks that would benefit depackagers and generators as well as the environment. But again, more data is needed prior to creating that standard.
Did it.
11:30, look at that.
Boom.
Nicely done. What I was thinking was, my hand is cramping up because I was writing. I was trying to capture what you guys were saying. To my colleagues Ben and Mia, who are, we're going to try and lean in for you guys. It strikes me that if you were to send in your written comments to us, it would allow you to rephrase, reframe, and maybe even succinctly say what your thoughts were on each number, and then we could see if we can have something prepared. Ben, does that sound like doable, to at least have a document to present
Prepared by
those
the next
individuals?
meeting?
Yeah. I don't know if we'll be able to tease out the commonalities by that time, but it will at least give us something for people to react to.
Yeah, that might be tight, but we could try.
Yeah, we can have a draft. It might not be pretty.
But
I
if
think-
everybody submits written stuff, make it way easier rather than.
Yeah. I'm trying to, and I'm gonna have to look at your written stuff.
When would you need that by to be functional?
We're
Soon
just
as
gonna
possible.
fit it in, yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Like end of tomorrow, because we're meetings Tuesday, so that would give you 2 business days.
yeah, that seems reasonable, but that's probably, or sooner if you can get them. but-
Yeah, I mean, even if you, figures is handwritten.
Yeah.
Some of you like.
When is the transcription? How long does that take?
Of this meeting?
Yeah,
It's instantaneous.
Yeah, happens
Oh,
right
okay.
away.
because that might be helpful for folks. Mine was written
Not
out.
as tough as you think.
Yeah.
It's like ad lib.
Software,
Yeah.
software's not quite there yet. It should be, but it's not. There's some funny things.
The names are pretty great, yeah.
I wish it was that functional, but, yeah, why don't we shoot for that? And then we'll try our best to pull something together between Mia and I. And then, the other thing too is do we want to just have the next meeting on the 6th to be going over that document, or is there other things that we just sort of shared today? I don't know if there's other things that we want to cover during that meeting before the draft document, or what are your thoughts on that?
So take it one at a time. Everybody should submit written comments to you ASAP.
Yeah.
Can we
Aaron and
set a
Bill.
limit on the number of sentences? I mean, we don't need a report, right, on those answers. Can we just say 5 to 8 sentences for each answer? Like, summarize it. Just to help Ben and Mia?
I think that seems reasonable, Aaron. I think most of you have been in that general ballpark. And so let's see how we go. And,
Stand streaking down.
I mean, I can't stand to prevent any of you from saying what your piece is. We're just trying to see how close we can get you to a collaborative process, to be in keeping with the legislation. So yeah, and Ben, do you mind if I ask people to send it to you so that it's not unclear? They send it to me or whatever, that just send it to one person. Does
Yeah,
that
that
work? Okay.
I just have one other thing. I don't know if folks have been making use of the folders and all of the research that has been uploaded into there, but I think in addition to our testimony, there's a lot of content there that I think would be informative to the conversation. So I'd hate for us to be submitting recommendations, having not done all the information gathering, and people have taken time to find the right papers, upload papers. So just a reminder that that's all there and technically part of the body of evidence that we're supposed to be sorting through.
As far as the agenda for next meeting, talk through this stuff. Anything else we put on that agenda?
I think we need to leave a little time for just clarifying how we go forward with the actual report drafting. So we had a half hour for each question and a half hour for the next steps.
Good with that, folks are. Well, some amount of progress.
Yeah,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
5 minutes over.
That sounds good to me. I definitely heard that, the starting block we created there was not unanimous support for any of that policy recommendation. This was like where we started to tease out different parts of statute. However, many of you riffed off that in your comments to 1, 2, and 3. So I think that's where we should proceed with this document of each of you responding to the 3 questions and see where the commonalities are from there. That's what strikes me as the easiest path forward at this point. So given the season of Thanksgiving, I just want to say thanks to all of you. I think we often engage in these group discussions and it's hard stuff, but I just want to see the riff on the positive, like the fact that all of you lean into this system is what makes Vermont so great. I think we've gotten a lot of success with the universal recycling law, and there's some sticky points, but I feel really thankful for all of you and your various industries and people you represent, and that you come to the table. It's impressive. So please accept my heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, everyone online. Everyone here.